We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. And if you want to support this channel through a donation, hit the $sign when you make a comment, and we'll get you a comment as soon as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue, PATC community. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room or with your phone calls later in the show. It's a busy, busy week. Busy week. We're going to do the best we can to give you a peek around the corner. That's the name of the show. We are the rebel outpost of all college football YouTube channels. We did get some information on the Florida State Board of Trustees meeting. We're going to get to it. Not just what we have been told why the Florida Board of Trustees and the Florida Board of Governors, why they're doing what did Florida State accomplish today? A lot of people might be thinking it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. We've been told it was something. It was something. We did not have the information when we did our episode 364 earlier today. Still, go and watch it. Still, after this live show, go watch episode 364. But after that episode, we got some information. Remember, when we, I don't remember what day it was, but we got the call. We were told that this meeting was going to get put up on the Florida State Board of Trustees website early in the morning, whatever day it was. I do not remember the day. So we were the first to break it on X, formerly known as Twitter. Seconds when it came out, I posted it on X, but I didn't know what it meant. I laid the question to everybody. All that we were told is that this was coming out. We didn't have time. This was like 4 o'clock in the morning Central Time. Anyways, now that some information has come out about it, what happened here, we have been told the motivations why Florida State did what they did today. And it might be, I can see why most people are blowing this off, but we've got it. We've got the reason why. And we're going to break it to you here on this live show, January 24th, on this live show. So, we're going to get to that. But we're going to get to a couple other things first. Justin Lucas in the chat says, I believe the UNC Board of Governors just voted. We don't know when they're going to vote. It could be even tomorrow. We're waiting on news of that. Okay. We're going to get... Look, we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. We're going to get to the Florida State, what we were told at 10:30, around 10:30 Central Time, an hour and a half ago. We were given some information. So we're going to get into it. I think it's important. The title of the show, Florida State has become nimble and ready. It's not about, I'm just going to give you a little clue here. It's not about the Florida State University paying off all whatever, $700 million, $600 million, $500 million, for whatever it is, out of their auxiliary budget and give it to the AC. That's not what this is about. It's about the ACC and the grant of rights, but it's not about Florida State taking $500, $600, $700, $800 million out of some budget of theirs or out of their $1 billion endowment. It's not that, but it is something. So hang with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Hang with us. It's not about paying off the attorneys either. It's about it's about all of that, but it's an indication of what potentially could happen here in the future. We're going to get to it. I promise you. Big Dog Daddy, thank you so much. Mr. Husky, for your super chat. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you so very much. Let's get to the title, the screen title of this show, right? The Florida State is the big news. The North Carolina Board of Governors, if they voted right now, that's going to become a big news. The title of the show is the title screen, not the title of the show. The title screen is Breakaway is on the table. Now, a lot of people use Breakaway in so many different ways. I mean, breakaway this, breakaway that. Oh, it's college football is breaking away from the NCAA, which they sort of already, they're kind of already broken away from the NCAA. Not entirely. Maybe they form their own organization, a complete break. That's what Breakaway could be. Or it could be the FBS, the Autonomy 4 conferences, breaking away from the rest of FBS, the G5 conferences. Is that what breakaway means? I don't know. I hope it doesn't. But, or does it mean a complete breakaway where the SEC and the Big Ten break off alone? I cannot see that happening either. That's my opinion. That's what everybody we've talked to believes. None of that is going to happen. There's already too much antitrust. There's already too many things going on in the court. The Big Ten and the SEC would not do that. Not at this time. I don't even believe this is about breaking away from the G5 conferences. However, I'm getting a little nervous about something. You all know that I'm the champion for the G5 conferences. I want them to have continued playoff access, but I do have to bring up something. After we go through an article here, I want to go through an article real quick. Ross Dellenger this morning. And then I'll get to what I'm nervous about when it comes to the Sun Belt, to the AAC, to the MAC, to the Mountain West. We'll get to it in a second here. Hold on. Here we go. We're going to go through this article real quick. We're not going to go through the whole thing. I provide a link in the description. You can read the whole article. But let's get to it. With college sports at a critical juncture, is Project D1 the answer? Everything is on the table. What is wrong with Project D1? Will Congress play any role? Here is where things stand with the new NCAA proposal. You remember that Division One, the new Division One proposal Charlie Baker brought forward to all the commissioners of the FBS. He talked about it in Congress. Washington, D.C. on December 5th, NCAA President Charlie Baker unveiled a somewhat radical proposal to modernize the college athletics model in an unprecedented way, recommending direct pay to athletes and the creation of a new subdivision. The college athletics world reacted to Project D1 in a variety of ways. While a surprise to many, it was mostly met with fanfare for its progressive and bold approach. But some questioned both its rollout, few knew the intimate details, and its sustainability as a long-term solution for the industry's primary issue: how to better compensate college athletes. Nearly 2 months after the Project D1's grand reveal, some of the targets at the center of the proposal, schools in the Power 5, or better yet, Power 2, are not in support of the plan. Some of the targets at the center of the proposal, schools in the Power 5, or better yet, the Big Ten and the SEC, are not in support of the plan. There's a disagreement on the proposal's implementation, discord about the NCAA's future in general, growing doubts about congressional action, a necessary component to the proposal, and most notably, further discussion of an NCAA secession from schools residing at the highest level of the sport. In other words, the Big Ten and the SEC, more and more are looking at separating college football entirely, secession from the NCAA. Amidst it all, in one of the most challenging times in college athletics history, the most powerful executives in the sport, the Power Five commissioners, gather this week in the nation's capital. They are scheduled to meet on Thursday with Baker in a gathering, perhaps to further explore their differences and chart a course, together or apart, toward rectifying the various unsolved issues in the industry. Mounting legal challenges, some with billion-dollar price tags, threaten to bankrupt the sport we all love, PATC community. An unruly transfer portal and NIL landscape sent football and basketball rosters into a tizzy. The tether between major college athletics and higher education continues to wear thin, further complicating matters. College athletics' existence as we know it hinges on a governing body even slower than its own Congress. Okay, this is where we're going to get to here. What is wrong? What is wrong with Project D1? Nothing. Nothing. If you ask many of those in the NCAA's 95%, as Baker likes to refer to them. Those of Division III, Division II, and many in Division I support a proposal that draws a more official line between the haves and the have-nots of the NCAA's three-division, 97-conference organization. Despite some anxiety, even those within the ranks of FCS and lower-level FBS Group of Five are realistic enough to understand that the model only recognizes the growing gap between them and the football elites and incorporates a framework around it. So for most of the schools in Division III, Division II, and Division I, even among the Group of Five, FCS, most of them are somewhat in support, knowing that there's going to be a new or should be a new subdivision, opting in, opting out, paying student athletes $30,000 or more, half your scholarship student athletes $30,000 or more a year to qualify to be in the new subdivision. It's not the big schools complaining. It's the 95%ers that are. It's the big schools that are complaining, not the 95%ers. However, at the Power 5 level, there is a pushback, especially from those in the Big Ten and SEC. Over the last several weeks, Baker has met with athletic directors from 3 of the 5 major conferences about Project D1. Pac-12 athletic directors are not routinely meeting, and Baker has not met with those from the SEC. However, the SEC administrators have been critical of the proposal in private. Meetings with the ACC, the Big 12, they were okay, right? Compared to the meeting held with the Big 10, Baker's hour-long in-person meeting with Big 10 administrators last week in Chicago, well, as we describe it here at Peek Around the Corner, it went pear-shaped. It turned into a proverbial airing of grievances about the plan itself. As you can see, the Big Ten and the SEC, they're starting to push back against it. You're going to learn why here. At its heart, Project D1 is about deregulation. It cedes control of impactful decisions such as athlete compensation, scholarship limits, and roster spots to the high revenue producing schools. The proposal comes in two parts. One, it permits D1 schools to strike NIL deals directly with their athletes and offers athletes uncapped educationally related enhancements. As part of the proposal is on a sort of a fast track. Okay? Number two, it creates a new subdivision of FBS meant for the highest revenue producing athletic departments. There is an entry fee. Schools with a new subdivision would be required to distribute at least $30,000 per athlete for half the school athletes. Okay, we talked about that. Gripes over the proposal range widely. According to conversations that several administrators held with Yahoo Sports over the last month at the championship site in Houston, NCAA convention in Phoenix. In a way, the NCAA's own proposal strips away more of its own authority, which, ironically, opens up the organization to question of its own existence from those in major conferences. Can't we enforce our own rules and operate our own championships? In other words, if we're going to create this new subdivision, where the teams that opt into this subdivision are going to be more in control of its own rules and enforcement of why do we need the NCAA at all? If it's not going to be the umbrella for everybody, why the schools are going to be opting in be even a part of the NCAA when it comes to football? But take other issues with the proposal. Look, there is no cap on any of the compensation avenues to athletes, the NIL payments, educationally related enhancement, and subdivision toll. College stakeholders at the highest level, both coaches and administrators alike, and this is the PATC money shot of the article. Both coaches and administrators alike are seeking a more regulated system similar to professional sports, which have salary caps and contracts. This is really becoming obvious. We got to get to this point. Got to have a CBA, got to have contracts. And if they can work in salary caps, if the schools and the conferences have the leverage at the negotiation table over who's representing the student athletes, they can get salary caps, that's fine too. And if a salary cap is based around a conference, if it's a conference decision, that's fine. I don't know. I mean, there's so many ways this could go. In a Baker's proposal, Title IX is used as a way to regulate direct pay to athletes. A 51-year-old federal law, Title IX, requires educational programs receiving federal dollars to provide equal opportunities to women and men students. While the law has produced a robust and successful women's athletic movement in the United States, it was meant to be applied in an amateurism model. Applying Title IX in a professional model means that schools will be compensating a football player whose sport produces millions in revenue the same as a women's player whose sport loses millions. The proposal may slow, but will not completely end booster-led NIL collectives, which MAC Commissioner John Steinbacher says is the wish of most athletic directors. Most of them would like to see collectives go away. What is Congress doing? We can skip over this. They're not doing much, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to be able to get together. It's an election year. There's really no help from Congress, which, for me, spells that everybody's going to have to go in a different direction. If not D1, then what? Jeffrey Kessler, a New York sports attorney, is presiding over 2 more legal challenges against the NCAA and the power conferences, most notably the House versus NCAA case. House seeks the elimination of NCAA NIL rules and retroactive NIL payments to athletes that could exceed $3 billion. Kessler boils down the options before college leaders into 2 avenues. I think we're on a path to dramatic change in college sports in terms of what happens to these revenues that are generated. The only question is whether or not the changes will come slowly and painfully at the result of decision after decision of the NCAA losing in court time after time after time, or whether they should proactively try to settle these cases and agree on a system that would be fair to athletes, get them representation, have them become employees, have them protected, have them negotiate with the schools and conferences. Let's get this done. There's more to this. There's a lot more to the article. You can read the whole thing again. Oh, I'm sorry. Here at the end, it talks about, I want to get to this. I apologize. What are the SEC and the Big Ten up to? It's no surprise the SEC and the Big Ten administrators have expressed privately and publicly the most qualms over Baker's proposal. Officials from the 2 conferences hold more authority than the other leagues. Next year, the 2 conferences will encompass 34 schools in 26 different states. From a revenue perspective, schools in the Big Ten, the SEC will earn at least $7 million annually in television distribution, at least $25 million more than the next conference media rights. There's potentially a pathway to an exit. The 10 FBS leagues in Notre Dame are bound to the college football playoff television agreement for just 2 more years. And though there are negotiations to extend that agreement with ESPN, such an extension has not been struck. It's no secret the 2 commissioners of the behemoth SEC Big Ten have developed a close relationship, communicate regularly, and hold the power to steer college football's future. Its direction is quite clear. Sankey and Petitti have expressed an intent to both accelerate NCAA governance and condense the amount of schools operating under a single umbrella. How do you take larger groups and make them smaller to drive forward? Petitti asked in an interview late last year, Yahoo Sports. Although administrators from the 2 leagues have not jointly met, each of them separately held serious discussions about models for the future of the industry. In fact, SEC athletic directors met in person early this month in a roundtable discussion of sorts about the topic. Everything is on the table, said one. That includes a breakaway. SEC athletic directors, they met in person this month in January at a roundtable discussion. Everything is on the table. That includes a breakaway. You can read the whole article. But what does everything is on the table, including a breakaway. What does that breakaway look like? Nobody really actually says it. Nobody actually really says, I think it's going to look like this. They use the word breakaway. Is it just a breakaway? Is it just The 10 or soon to be 9 FBS conferences and Notre Dame breaking football away from the NCAA entirely. Is that the breakaway? Do you think that is the breakaway? Or is it the 4 autonomy conferences and Notre Dame breaking away from the rest of FBS, from the G5 conferences? Is that a breakaway? Is that the breakaway we're talking about? Or is it Big Ten and the SEC breaking away from everybody? Or is it the SEC breaking away completely by themselves? What breakaway do you think this is all about? What breakaway do you think is actually on the table? I have been a champion of the G5 schools, the conferences, the student athletes, and I think it's best for them to keep playoff access, to remain. Yeah, they don't have to pay the players the way the rest of the schools do. They don't have to be in the room to make the rules. But I still believe it's best for the sport that they remain having playoff access. Most of you disagree with me. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again today. But I am a little worried about something. Then we're going to get to your comments real quick. And then we're going to get to the Florida State. Because we were given some information at about 10:30. We need to deliver to you about the Florida State Board of Trustees meeting. Do you remember a couple weeks ago, it's been a few weeks ago, where the playoff committee was meeting and they made some decisions, the playoff managers, where they've made some decisions. One of them was you have to be an 8-team conference for your champion to have the potentiality of being one of the top 5 conference champions to get that automatic berth, and also to get a first round in the playoffs if you're one of the top 4 conference champions. You remember they made that decision a few weeks ago? Okay? They made that decision a few weeks ago. And they also, out of that playoff manager meeting, they said that they were going to come to a decision in regards to changing the playoff model from 6+6 to 5+7. Do you remember that? Right now, it's at 6 at large and 6 conference champions get an automatic berth. Right now, that's how it is until that officially changes. We've heard all this talk that it looks like it's going to go to a 5+7. 5 conference champions, 7 at large. Sound like the G5 conference would agree with this. But it hasn't happened yet. And that's why I'm worried. Because if it doesn't happen, if it stays 6+6 for the next 2 years, because you need a unanimous vote to change the structure for 24 and 25. If it stays the way it is, I believe that means the G5 wasn't given the security, the guaranteed that they're going to have playoff access for 2026 and beyond. In my opinion, excuse me, in the opinion of people that we talk to, there is no justification for the G5 to have it changed from 6+6 to 5+7 unless they get long-term security, long-term playoff access. If they don't get that, then Why have this change happen? Why go from 6 plus 6 to 5 plus 7? But it hasn't happened yet, has it? And that's why I'm getting a little worried for G5 schools. To me, that means that maybe Sankey and Petitti and possibly Yormark, possibly Phillips, have hit the pause button. Maybe they're willing to go 6 plus 6 for the next 2 years because then they don't have to bargain. They don't have to make a compromise for 2026 and beyond. Maybe that breakaway, more lucrative playoffs, not having G5 schools included starting in 2026 might take a hold. They would have that flexibility. So I'm getting a little worried, to be honest. As somebody who wants G5 to maintain playoff access, at least one playoff berth for all those schools, for all those athletic departments, for the health of those schools, for the health of those athletic departments, those student athletes. We see G5 football players go in the portal, become big-time players in Power 5, Power 4 conference schools. I want that ladder to remain. I want visibility for those G5 schools. I want as much value for those G5 schools as possible. And that's to have FBS all together. So I think, at least I'm hoping, that Breakaway isn't about dividing FBS in half. It's about taking the whole piece, moving it out of NCAA, and having all FBS enforcing their own rules, making their own rules, and maybe creating a subdivision among FBS, and those schools make their own rules. We shall see. I want to hear from you what you think the breakaway is. Is it A4 breaking away from G5? Or is it FBS, Notre Dame breaking away from NCAA? Or is it Big Ten, SEC breaking away from everybody? Let me know what you think. And I'm going to get to your comments as quick as possible. First of all, let me thank everybody for coming on in. Before we get to the Florida State news, James Foster's in the house. Patrick is in the house. Walking Geek, Marcus Williams, early peak member, John Menser, Ryan Matson, Sky, Yuma, Matt Neeson is in the house. Go Cyclones, Jeff Jorgensen, John Bennett, the Evil Badger, Jeff Olson is in the house. Caden Dad, Donnie McNerney, Randy Taylor, Mr. Hagen, D5 Terps is in the house. Wilson, Bracy, D5 Terps, Mr. Hoosier, Dana Montecastle, early peak member is in the house. Stephen McNeely is in the house. Black Rain is in the house. Immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye is in the house. Sean says the breakaway's coming. Lannis 31's in the house. John Dry is in the house. Dylan Vance. Okay. Joe Z. Okay. Let's get to Florida State. This is pretty interesting. Well, we got some breaking news. Okay, we're gonna try to keep up here. You know what? Let me get to the Florida State. I do not want to. We got to get to that. I do not want to be. Holy smokes! We got breaking news. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, hang on here. Man, it's like, I tell you, it's like riding a wild tiger. We do have breaking news on North Carolina Board of Governors moves ahead with the policy that could stop North Carolina State from leaving the ACC. That's one way of putting it. We're going to get to that in a moment. Holy smokes. Florida State. Let's get to Florida State, then we'll get to North Carolina. There is so much going on. Man. Keep your head on a swivel. Everybody, keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. Florida State meeting. We're going to get into this. Then we're going to get to the North Carolina Board of Governors. They voted. There is a reason why here at Peek Around the Corner, we've been investing so much time with our shows discussing the lay of the land when it comes to North Carolina. This is just part of it. We'll get to it in a second. Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times, Florida State Board of Trustees is meeting now. This was early this morning to discuss a potential internal bank loan to athletes for potential non-capital strategic initiatives. No definite timeline amount being shown thus far. Then Matt Baker put out a tweet. Florida State Board of Trustees unanimously approved the plan that would allow university auxiliary funds to be loaned to athletics. No specific amount, timeline, or purpose was discussed. They simply approved a plan that allows them to approve future plans. And then Matt Baker, the context, the Board of Governors, which oversees Florida public universities, just like the Board of Governors in the state of North Carolina, which we'll get to next, recently changed its rules, which led to the discussion at Florida State today. This was a procedure setup move for potential moves in the future. Most importantly, it was quick and painless to follow. And then Matt Baker put out a tweet later on saying basically the Board of Governors still have power to look at this, whatever. Here is what we were told at about 10:30 this morning. This is what Florida State accomplished. This is now they have become more nimble and more ready to take action if needed. This is not about Florida State looking into their auxiliary funds, their budget, taking money from the endowment or whatever and paying off a grant of rights to the ACC. That's not what this is about. What this is about is letting whoever they're talking to, whatever, is it JP Morgan? Whatever investment firm, equity firm, whoever they're talking to. This is about that. This is their collateral. This is what secures the deal. If something pops in a settlement, if something pops in the court where Florida State is able to, if they believe it's worth it for them to pay this penalty, whatever that number is, to get them released from the ACC's grant of rights, that they can move quickly on it. But this is for JP Morgan. I'm just going to use the word JP Morgan. That is not, yes, JP Morgan and Florida State have been talking, but we don't have it confirmed that it's totally about JP Morgan. But it is about the firm making sure that whatever they invest in to Florida State, that they can get back in a quarterly consistent paying down whatever type of loan that they get from a JP Morgan. Do you understand? In other words, basically what the Florida State Athletics Department, the Board of Trustees, is telling them when it comes to finalizing these procedures to make sure they can grab some money internally from other places at Florida State, the auxiliary fund, that they can fill in the gaps when it comes to paying back the investment equity firm that's given them the money in the first place to pay out of getting out of the grant of rights in the ACC. Collateral, a word I can't say. Collateral. This is what this is. It's giving more security to the equity firm, to the investment firm. You know, if Florida State does this and JP Morgan or whoever writes a check of $325 million, whatever that number is, don't know what it is, don't know what it's going to be, whatever that number is, you know, Florida State there might be a few years where Florida State's not getting a full cut of revenue from SEC of the Big Ten, or they might be. But they're going to have this payment that they're going to have to owe, and this is the university. This is Florida State University, the Board of Trustees, Board of Governors, State of Florida. This is the insurance policy that this investment firm or equity firm needs to make the deal. So what we're being told is that this is a strong indication that Florida State they are about to secure a financial relationship with a JP Morgan or somebody like JP Morgan. That this is something they want. Suddenly they did this. Suddenly they put this meeting forward. Suddenly they went into action. It was a quick meeting. They've got their procedures down. They got the okay. They can make that quick little, that internal institutional loan to fill in possibly some gaps in the future years ahead. And they've secured this relationship with a JP Morgan. This is what this was all about, which is big news. We've been told that by two completely different sources. So that is what we were told. FSU just got an okay for a big line of credit. Yes. Jonathan Price just said it better than I just said it. Absolutely. This is interesting because it's just the timing of it's very interesting. Anyways, we'll go back into your comments. We'll get to your phone calls. But now we've got another breaking story. Oh, God. Board moves ahead with policy that could stop North Carolina State from leaving the ACC. WRAL Sports. Breaking news from the great Brian Murphy, WRAL. Any UNC system school that includes North Carolina Chapel Hill and North Carolina State University that wants to change athletic conferences will have to get approval from the system president and the board under a policy change approved by the board committee Wednesday. The change must be approved by the full 24-member board of governors before it goes into effect. The University Governance Committee approved the move Wednesday. Now, first of all, I got a question for you all. When it says the change must be approved by the full 24, is that like a majority vote? It can't be unanimous vote, right? Let me know what you think on that. The move comes as North Carolina-based ACC, which includes North Carolina State, and private schools, Duke and Wake Forest, is falling behind other athletic leagues in media rights revenue. The SEC and the Big Ten have stockpiled the biggest brands in college football, and some of the ACC top teams are seeking refuge in one of those leagues. The consolidation of programs into other leagues will leave... okay, that's a mistake. That should not have been there. UNC and North Carolina State are charter members of the ACC, which was founded in 1953. The league is now headquartered in Charlotte and hosts many of its championship events in North Carolina, including its annual football championship game in Charlotte. State lawmakers approved $15 million in incentives for the league in an effort to keep its headquarters in the state. The Tar Heels in particular are seen as the top expansion candidate for both the SEC and the Midwest-based Big Ten, which soon will have schools in California, Washington, Oregon, as well as New Jersey and Maryland. If UNC were to leave, likely as part of a larger exodus, it could have huge ramification on the athletic revenue of North Carolina State. Football power Florida State has sued the ACC, seeking to exit the league without paying enormous financial penalties. The athletic directors at UNC and North Carolina State declined comment on the proposal earlier in the week. WRAL also reached out to its chancellors at both universities. Under the proposed changes of the UNC System's policy manual, chancellors must give the UNC System president advance notice prior to executing any agreement, which would result in the constituent institution's transfer, removal, or joining an athletic conference association. The notice to the president shall include the president's approval or disapproval, a financial plan related to the proposed action. If the president approves the financial plan, the board would then get a chance to weigh in and could vote no, stopping any conference affiliation change. We've been through all this before. So there it is. Breaking news. They did vote on it. The UNC Board of Governors, North Carolina Board of Governors, now have even more power over the future decision-making of North Carolina. And does this help North Carolina State? Does this tie North Carolina State to the hip of North Carolina? Go through the North Carolina Board of Governors. Go through that list. 24 names. There's a lot of North Carolina State. There's a lot of North Carolina State Wolfpack on that board, including the chairman of the board. I think his name is Randy Randall. He's a big-time North Carolina State alumnus. He's on all these different organizations, all these different boards. He is the chairman of the board when it comes to the Board of Governors. Yes, the chair of the Board of Governors is a North Carolina State grad, and he's basically a part of many different organizations. Holy smokes. Well, we don't, it's not for sure. Hagen says, so North Carolina State is getting taken care of. Gotcha. It increases the chances that they get taken care of. I would not say this is definitely puts North Carolina State tied to the hip of North Carolina, but it sure helps North Carolina State. They're going to get something. If North Carolina, if there's an ACC implosion, which I believe is going to happen, if North Carolina goes to the SEC of the Big Ten, North Carolina State's going to get something out of this. If not an invite, if not a direct invite with North Carolina to go to the SEC, they're going to get some financial payback from North Carolina. Kind of like what California did with UCLA, at the very least. But look, North Carolina Board of Governors, they are proactive, right? They're being proactive. And the power within the Board of Governors is North Carolina State. So it's very interesting. A lot of politics. We said there's going to be a lot of politics involved in all this. John Till, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate your continued generosity. If the two North Carolina schools get blocked, does that make the value of Virginia schools skyrocket? No, I don't think so, because the Virginia schools are tied together. They're tied together politically. They both have the same issue, in my opinion. Thank you for the super chat, John. Appreciate your generosity so very much. We are going to open up the phone lines here. Lots to discuss. 763-260-1333. You can talk about the Board of Governors. You can talk about what does a breakaway look like to you. If there is a breakaway in college football, what does it exactly look like? Florida State Board of Trustees, NCAA, North Carolina Board of Governors, breakaway. We've got 3 big breaking stories going on in this live show. Give us a call. 763-260-1333. I'm getting a lot of comments here. I'm getting a lot of DMs. I'm looking through them real quick. Holy smokes. Holy smokes.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate. Mr. Hawkeye, the floor is yours. We got so many things going on this week.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. What do you think, sir?
Well, I just wanted to wait a few moments there to see if anyone else was calling in real quickly, because this one might be a doozy. So
go ahead.
If we
the
go
floor is
too
yours.
long,
As
just
long
be
as
like,
you want
hey,
it. Yep.
I got to get to some other callers, because this is kind of the day we've been waiting for. At least I have.
Yeah.
Really would have been watching for is kind of a statement. I didn't expect it to be so blatant, so up front. So, yeah, we're willing to leave if we don't get our way. But it was. And, that kind of went through Dellenger to do that. So it wasn't entirely direct. But there it is. Same kind of threat that was delivered in 2014 when the vote to pass the student-athlete stipends failed in the NCAA. They threatened to leave. By 2015, they had the autonomous conferences created at the next vote. Problem is right now is they're delivering this threat after the conference this month. So it's I don't know if this can pass through committee in between now and next January when the conference meets again. But this thing could get tight, man. If they can't pass this until next January, early January, and like what we're talking about is a breakaway. Now, that term is loaded.
Yes.
People are probably thinking, oh, they're going to leave the NCAA. That's what breakaway means. Not necessarily. There's probably a lot that they'd still like the NCAA to do for them, so that they don't have to do it themselves and they don't have to be fully responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that FBS as a whole will probably break away from the FCS, and they'll create this new division for that.
Yeah.
Once they do that, and if they give what I think to be full or damn near full autonomy to them to run that new division, whatever we want to call that, they can pass so many new rules in a short amount of time, because that's how the autonomous conference voting system was made. It was made to be very quick. It's just those guys, they vote on something, that's it. It doesn't have to go through these committees, through these powers, have a vote amongst all the divisions. So we could see movement very quickly, and they even made it said in that article that it's largely about House versus NCAA, which is, we've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
The amounts of that, and the fact that those conferences are directly stated as defendants in that. That's why that's the one that's going to do it, and they're going to need to find some ways, one, to increase the amount of money that they're making so that they can pay off whatever settlement they make on that. That's why I've said I expect to see, new divisional rules, kind of a conference playoff situation. Now, maybe they do away with conferences to some degree and create something else within that division, because you're going to have some of these Olympic sports with that much travel distance. They're going to have to find a way to cut that down. They're going to have to figure out how to do what they do and cut the cost, because traveling all of those sports across country is going to be significant. So I don't know, but that's where I think that's going.
Yeah.
I think that this is, it's a threat. It's made to have a reaction. And if this was the first time this was ever done, I think we'd all be up in arms going, what the hell? But this is basically an exact replica of what happened 10 years ago.
So your definition of a breakaway is 133 FBS teams moving away from FCS and creating their own rules and all that. I happen to agree with you, but I'm just making sure I got.
Yeah. There's some leeway as to, do they all go? Do maybe some go back down to FCS? There's also the issue of maybe some of the FCS want to come up with them, and the NCAA knows that, and that's why they raised the fee from going from FCS to FBS from $5,000 to $5 million. When I saw that, the first thing that reminded me of was not something to stop from happening, but that's a tax. Like, they, for whatever, foresee more movement like that happening here in the short term, and they want to cash in. So that's where I see that. So I'm thinking it might be more, but man, that's kind of a hard sell right now, right? Like with all these costs that are coming. But I got to think that there's some schools that want to get involved with that. If you're looking down the FCS, look at your Montana schools, your Dakota schools. Do they, when this split happens, do they still want to stay down in the FCS? Look at all of the Ivy schools. I've been talking about that for a little while. If those guys are going to jump up to the ACC or whatever to be part of this, to be at the table deciding those rules rather than just being subject to it, that's going to cost each one of them $5 million to do, because they're in the FCS. So, it's all these tiny little data points and trying to connect it how it could work out. But I just want people to understand this is not a surprise. This is not, something happening that's like, oh, this is off script. No, this is very much on script. This is what we expected. Timing-wise, things are coming down to this year. A lot of this has to happen. So
now, what do you think about the Florida State Board of Trustees North Carolina Board of Governors. A lot of action today.
The North Carolina stuff, that happened as expected. I mean, when you have a body like that ahead of time comes out and says, we want to do this, and then in order to get there, they have to vote to give themselves the power to do that.
Yeah.
That's 100%. You know where that's going. Let's move on to the next subject. Not that I'm saying we move on right now.
Yeah.
But from the moment I saw that, I was like, okay, that's past. I'm not thinking about that. That's going to happen. The Florida State one is interesting because it's like, okay, we're giving ourselves it's kind of similar, actually. We're giving ourselves the power to do something undefined in the future when we decide we want to do it. So we know they have the power to, like you're saying, is to raise funds. Might that be if, say, the ACC withholds payments to them at some point in time, they can then, fund themselves? I don't know. It gives them a little more leverage and
we were told it was to basically solidify their agreement relationship with whoever they're working with, be it JP Morgan. Basically, it gives them a line of credit to make sure collateral for that JP Morgan to make sure that, yes, whatever hardships Florida State will have to go through their athletic department, they're going to be able to keep track, keep with their payments. Basically, it was an act of security given JP Morgan, whoever, some collateral in the deal. That's what we were told.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's just preparing them. I mean, I think that they're probably in talks. It would be, I think, pretty ludicrous on both sides if they weren't in some kind of talks. Now, maybe those talks are going well, and this is preparation for that, or maybe those talks aren't going well, and this was kind of a pointed gun towards them saying, you don't have us where you think you have us. We can do this if we have to. Mm-hmm. Now let's go back to talking.
Yeah.
But we just don't know. That's all behind doors at the table. But they wouldn't be doing this for no reason whatsoever. So it's kind of a murky tell that something's going on, and this is part of that. We just don't really know what. But yeah, like I said, for me today, the biggest thing, and we're going to be talking about on the show tonight as we go into this heavily, is there's going to be a lot of fear out there. A lot of people looking at this going, oh, especially the way that article was written, because it was intended to make some folks be afraid. That's the intent. Now, that's not necessarily us that it's directed at. So to folks who just say, relax a little bit, this is expected. It doesn't mean that your favorite G5 school is screwed. It doesn't mean that your favorite Big 12 school is screwed. It just means they are now playing hardball to get what they need to do in order to go forward. And I will continue to argue that once they do that, I do believe they're going to have some different postseason capabilities, and I think we see hints to that in the 12 team. I don't necessarily believe they just go to 16 teams and keep going. I think it's going to become something different. I've made a suggestion on that. That may not be what it is, but I do think that the G5s, those conferences, are going to have massive consolidation after this happens, because they're going to be able to possibly have their own conference postseason tournaments, and those will get on TV in a way that they're not able to get their regular season games on. Yeah. And when they do that, that could increase exposure and people giving a damn. So that's all I would say to folks just to end this recall. I know you're going to have people want to get on here and say, take a breath, relax, sit back with us, watch Craig as he guides you through this. We're going to do some talking about it tonight if folks want to come on with us, including yourself, and just kind of help people maybe see what's going on so there's a little less apprehension and a little less stress, because we're hitting the bumpy water now.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Mr. Hawkeye.
Yep. Talk
Appreciate
to you later.
it.
Have a good one.
Got it. Great call by Mr. Hawkeye. I got to get to a super chat real quick here. Thank you so much, John Teal. So Georgia Tech wins big today. No hooks in them. I don't. I don't see it as a win for Georgia Tech. Definitely not a lot. I don't see it either way. But I can understand where you're coming from, John. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much for your continued generosity. I appreciate it. Some other comments here.
Call from
Numbskull News.
Numbskull News. Can you just hold on 1 second, sir?
No problem.
I appreciate it. AAR, they spent $270 million on what exactly? People are talking about how Ohio State made $279 million, but they spent $270 million. We've talked about this at Peek Around the Corner. Oftentimes, schools will spend almost as much or exactly to the dime as much as they take in because they want to pay off their debts as early as possible because they save money on that in the long run. You'd rather have $5 million going to debt payments than $5 million sitting in your athletic budget, athletic vault, let's say. So that's all that means is when you see Ohio State spend $270 million, they spent a whole bunch of it on debt payment. And everybody would love to do that. I know University of Minnesota would love to do that, but we don't make that type of money. Numbskull News, the floor is yours. There's so many big breaking stories. What do you got to say, sir?
Well, as far as the Florida State thing, I think you kind of nailed it on the head. You know, they're getting the shotguns ready for war, and that's basically what that is, getting the war chest going. And if anyone didn't think they were serious, well, you should know by now they are.
Yes,
very.
Sir. Yes, sir.
And I had a question. Now, I've made some content about UNC possibly not going to the SEC or the Big Ten.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about their value. Like, what makes them so valuable?
What makes them so valuable is, well, first of all, it's the market, right? The state of North Carolina, that demographics has money in it, spending money in it. Like Fox Sports would love to have, just like I talk about the market of Miami, even though it's not a market, still matter. Even though,
right.
So the Florida market is more of a pro market, so you don't have that fan intensity. So Miami might not be able to get to the SEC, might not be able to get to the Big Ten, but Fox Sports would have some interest. Same thing with North Carolina. It's a big state with the demographics that has spending money behind it, and it's virgin country to the Big Ten and the SEC. It would expand the footprint of the SEC. So I think SEC would have a lot of interest, and the Big Ten has had interest in North Carolina for 25 years under Jim Dellenger, who was a North Carolina grad. They've talked a lot over the years, but you are correct in one. There's a lot of people in North Carolina who just want the ACC to remain because, ACC is in the state of North Carolina. It is in Charlotte. There's all that history and everything, so you are correct, and there's a lot of people who want it just to remain the same.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something that just smells weird to me, I guess. And I guess this is the contrarian nature of myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way I am. And, the content that I've made kind of goes against some of the, I guess, what people believe on UNC.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm no expert, but I can see that you have a cable bundle that's starting to collapse. Yeah. And every year they're getting rid of more and more networks that are associated with cable and satellite, your traditional stuff.
Yeah.
and things are going more and more streaming. And I think the Netflix thing, that's a huge box that just there's ripples that's going to happen with that. And I know markets matter. I just don't know if the value of that is going to continue. I guess that's kind of where, because to me, I agree with you. I think that is their biggest value, is the market. It's the ninth most populated state. You know, people make good money there. The people that are moving in are making good money. So I can understand everything on that traditional side of why you would want to expand into North Carolina and why these big conferences wanted to get in there a long time ago. I know the Big Ten's been chasing them for years. I think the SEC tried to get them a few times. And I just think a lot of that is changing, and especially with just the economics of ESPN and Fox. I don't know. I'm probably dead wrong. I just have my doubts.
Well, you might be dead right as well. So, I mean, North Carolina has a pretty big brand. It's centered around their basketball, but in Raleigh, North Carolina is a booming market. It's becoming and that's what we talked about for months and months and months ago. We gave everybody, a heads up. Look, North Carolina State, while they don't have the brand as North Carolina, they do have a better football fan base, but they are very powerful in the state of Carolina, and they're becoming more and more powerful, and you can see what's going on right now. They're trying to tie themselves to the hip of North Carolina with some success, at least.
Just when I look at the SEC, especially the SEC, I don't see a conference that's really looking to expand a great deal. And the guys they're bringing in with Texas and Oklahoma, they do not like expansion. That's just them. They don't like dividing up any kind of assets. They like to keep that to a minimum. That's just been their MO for a long time, and they are a political juggernaut going into the SEC. People in the SEC don't know what Texas and Oklahoma are. They are extraordinarily powerful together.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a big voice when it comes to expansion. And I can see them maybe doing some defensive moves like people have talked about with Florida State or Clemson. But I don't know if it goes beyond that. And the Big Ten, I don't know how much more they want to expand either. I can see them getting into Florida. They want Florida. Because everything that's positive about North Carolina, well, that's even greater in Florida. So and like I said, I'm probably talking out of my butt here. But,
well,
but
I just figured, aren't we all numbskull news? I
just figured, why not give an alternative view?
And you've done a great job. And you know what?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
You have. There's so many variables to this, though. I mean, the North Carolina piece just itself is complicated. And now we're seeing the end result of what's been going on there when it comes to the Board of Governors. The Board of Trustees at North Carolina is the pro-SEC faction is taken over. And by the way, I'm not trying to get political. I'm not a political... I'm not. I'm just saying this. North Carolina, the Board of Trustees at North Carolina, they lean to the SEC. The Board of Governors they lean, not lean. They are mostly appointed by Republican legislature. A lot of those people have connections with North Carolina State, which has a lot of connections to people who would be pro-SEC. So not only is this all, not only Numbskull News, it's just all about the SEC making sure, doing cloak and dagger stuff, making sure that if there is an ACC implosion, North Carolina is coming to us, SEC. And now this is NC State making a power move with the powers that they have within the state capital, saying, okay, well, if North Carolina's going to SEC, we're going to do all we can to go with them, because politically it all lines up. North Carolina doesn't necessarily, but North Carolina State does. But if North Carolina goes, North Carolina State's looking to go with them. There's a lot of political cloak and dagger stuff going on, Numbskull News. None of us knows where it's going to head at the end.
Well, hey, it's fun. It's fun to look at it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's fun to look at.
Yeah.
Well, you do a great job, sir, and I appreciate you. I just wanted to throw that out there.
You got it. Appreciate you, Numbskull News. Check them out. College football, Numbskull News. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah. Great call from a great guy. Numbskull News, great college football YouTube channel. I like listening to Numbskull News. I like his cadence, his voice. It is so much easier to listen to than what I offer. He's very, very good. Go give him a listen. And there's some breaking news, some more breaking news. Oh, man. I can't show this to you. But the university... Michigan has redoubled their efforts. They have strengthened their offer in bid to keep Jim Harbaugh. Sources indicate Michigan has made an effort to meet Jim Harbaugh's contractual demands. This is from Sam Webb, 247 Sports. It appears that Michigan would give Jim Harbaugh some immunity in regards to the current infraction cases. So keep your eyes on that story as well.
Call from
JD.
JD, holy smokes. The college football world is going crazy. I feel like I'm riding a tiger. What's going on, sir? The floor is yours.
How you doing, sir?
I'm working hard here in the studio. I'm trying to give everybody the peak, but things are moving so fast. The Florida State Board of Trustees. Did you hear our monologue early in the show?
Oh yes, sir. I watched the meeting, and I was it was short, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was short.
It was quick.
It was short,
quick
and our
to the
take
point.
on it. Did you hear what we were told about it?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
all
And
right, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Your theory is exactly the same. Well, what you were told was what my theory is, and think about this, okay? The ACC files their paperwork, their amended complaint last week. Okay, they were seeking an injunction against FSU to prevent them from participating in the any governance or any league business moving forward. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any notice of a hearing? Because the ACC meetings are in 3 weeks.
Now,
and sometimes these injunctions take a little bit of time.
Well, and that's that is my main question, right? On the winter meetings start February 15th. February 16th is when we expect responses from both Florida State Board of Trustees and from the ACC side in regards to each other's lawsuits. That injunction, I had not heard anybody say when that could be expedited. Could that happen by the middle of February? Are we looking at late February? Or what dates are we looking at? I haven't heard anything on that. Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard a peep, and
Yeah.
that's my question.
Yeah,
that's
I don't know.
Question. You look to file. I would assume you would want them to file, and you would want to file an injunction before the winter meetings. I have not heard of that. I have not heard of them taking that action or having a hearing because I'm not a lawyer, but I know when motions are filed, FSU's going to file a motion.
Mm-hmm.
There may be there'll be multiple hearings. This stuff may drag on a month. So if the ACC was as worried about it, my point is that, are you hearing whispers? I've heard a couple of whispers.
Nope, I haven't heard on that injunction. No, nothing.
No, I mean about a possible settlement.
Nope, not on that either.
Okay.
Now,
heard a couple of whispers. Don't know for sure, but
yeah.
But now that go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I shouldn't have interrupted. It's interesting. It's very interesting that today Florida State made what we believe to make the move to secure a relationship, a business relationship with, let's say, a JP Morgan or somebody like that, because I think they delivered to a JP Morgan what they wanted in the relationship. I think that's what Florida State accomplished today. I think Florida State got themselves an internal line of credit, and whoever they're working with, whatever equity firm they're working with, I think that's what needed to be done. So the timing of it, is there something percolating when it comes to settlement? I don't think so, but I definitely haven't heard anything.
Well, it just when you look at the timeline, the ACC files their amended suit or complaint. Then a matter of days later, FSU files or gives a notice of a board meeting, a board of trustees meeting, and what it's for. Okay, I don't know if things are about to be settled. Who knows? I've heard rumors before, and that may not necessarily be accurate as far as what some people are saying. FSU is preparing not to receive any more money from the ACC. I know that. And then also, like you said, it's they have created the path to receive money from the private equity firm, but you notice they've sped it up. Okay, mm-hmm. This isn't something that was done 6 months from now or 2 years from now. It's done right now. Mm-hmm. So they're preparing to act sooner rather than later.
Yes.
And I don't know. I could be just completely off base here, but just get the vibe this ain't going to go a year and a half. I just get the vibe that it's just in everyone's best interest to get this done. And I don't know. I may be taking the L in a couple of weeks and just telling you I was full of it. And there might be something decided and it's not announced for a few months. I got that, but I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. That was one reason I was wanting to kind of call in and ask you if you'd heard something. And I know you probably couldn't break confidences or anything. But
I don't have anything. But I was warned by the people I talked to that we're probably not going to hear anything. It's going to be very, very tight. This is the type of stuff that does not leak. Negotiations do not leak. So I'm very doubtful if I'm going to be able to give anybody a hint, a peek of anything when it comes to that part of the story.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of the factors are that you're not going to hear amounts or anything like that. And again, I don't know. I don't know how they work all this out with the sunshine laws and everything else. But but anyway, and as far as the other stuff, I really don't have much to add. I think y'all already covered it all.
Got it.
I just think North Carolina's going to have a hard time getting away from NC State. Yeah. And is the SEC going to be willing to take both? And I don't know. And then, like I said, the other stuff with the NCAA and the possible breakaway, I think you nailed it. The bigger conferences are wanting the smaller ones to play ball. If you want to be a part of the party, you better play. Yeah. Otherwise, you may get shut out, which antitrust, that may be hard, but they're definitely playing hardball with them for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just wanting to offer a little bit there on FSU and more or less asking just a couple questions.
You got it. I appreciate it, JD. Keep your head on a swivel.
Thanks for the midday entertainment here.
You got it, buddy. Thank you. Mr. Seminole, PATC,
Bye-bye.
JD. Mr. Seminole, JD. Yeah, it's the actions today. Now, as we reported here at Peek Around the Corner, Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times, they met to discuss a potential internal bank loan to athletics, potential non-capital strategic initiatives, meaning this is not about a loan to pay for, to put in a new drinking fountain somewhere at the stadium or something, it ain't anything like that. Board of Trustees approved a plan that would allow university auxiliary funds to be loaned to athletics. No specific amount, timeline, or purpose was discussed. They simply approved a plan that allows them to approve future plans. So we were told here at Peek Around the Corner that this was about helping them secure a relationship, a deal with an equity firm, with somebody like JP Morgan. Basically, internally, Florida State's athletic department now has a line of credit that can help them with whatever financial matters when it comes, gives more security to the equity firm. That's what this is about. And doing it today, kind of making sure that they have the procedural process in place, making it transparent to JP Morgan, whatever that company that is, showing them that, yes, Florida State, we can do this. We are a good long-term play for whatever firm this is, right? This is part of it. Now, is there any significance? Is there any significance that it happened today, January 24th? I don't know. I do not know. But, Florida State, they filed the lawsuit December 22nd. We were told for over a year that lawsuit was going to happen the first quarter of 2024. They moved that up. They're acting on this pretty quickly. They're being very proactive. They do not have feet of clay. Now, some people might think they're acting irresponsible, right? And again, crickets from Clemson. Crickets from Clemson. We haven't heard anything. It's January 24th. If they're going to act before the winter's meeting. If they're going to act anytime this year. They're not going to be going at this in bad faith where they go to the winter meetings on February 15th and walk out of there a couple weeks later. A couple weeks later down the road, they say, oh, wait, ACC, we're filing a lawsuit. Especially with this injunction happening in Florida State where the ACC is trying to muzzle Florida State from being able to participate, from being able to vote on ACC matters. Clemson is going to participate, possibly vote on ACC matters in the winter meeting on February 15th. And then in March, middle of March, they're going to sue the ACC. That stuff, that probably isn't going to happen. So the window of action is now. It's go or no go for launch for Clemson. Between January 20th and February 6th. That's the date we were told. It's January 24th, and it remains crickets. If we hear anything, we're going to be the ones that break it to you. we're going to be the ones that break it to you, since we're the ones that broke you the date range. We're the ones who broke you the Florida Board Trustees meeting on X, formerly known as Twitter, as we were the ones that broke it to you that this whole Board of Trustees meeting was about grabbing an inside line of credit to secure the relationship with whoever they're working with, JP Morgan. So if there's something coming out of Clemson, well, keep an eye on us. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications. We came on live during lunch. We could have done it in the morning. We might be going live tonight. Who knows what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen here at Peek Around the Corner. We don't know when we're coming on live next. It could be 5 minutes after I turn this live streaming off. So you've got to subscribe to our channel. You have to have your notifications on. Please smash the like button if you like our content. If you want to become an early Peek member, Cloak and Dagger early Peek member, go to the description. There is a link provided. Hit the join button. You'll get early morning episodes, a little bit of information before we go on with it live. Cloak and Dagger, early Peek. Hit the join button. All right, let's get back to your comments, into your phone calls. Wow. Ryan C. Expedition Greg, I would agree that SEC wants UNC and would take North Carolina State to get them. That is something North Carolina State is probably hoping for. That is their best case scenario. Aaron Rowe, North Carolina State has a higher viewership than Virginia and North Carolina. Earlier today, the North Carolina Board of Governors had a meeting, and they did vote. They did vote to get themselves more power when it comes to determining North Carolina and North Carolina State's future conference affiliations. If they decide at some point, if the ACC implodes and North Carolina has an opportunity to move into the Big Ten of the SEC, North Carolina now has to present a financial plan in front of the Board of Governors and UNC System President Peter Hands. But as we've been reporting to you for the last couple of months, Peter Hands, he is the system president. He has to not only oversee the health of North Carolina Chapel Hill, but he also oversees the health of North Carolina State. So this proposal passed. North Carolina would have to pass a financial plan, and I gotta believe, and many people believe the same thing, it's in some way, in some fashion, North Carolina State's future is going to have to be looked after. If North Carolina is looking to bolt to the Big Ten or the SEC in the future, North Carolina State's future is going to have to be looked at. Right here, WRAL Sports broke it. Board, that happened today. North Carolina Board of Governors moves ahead with policy that could stop North Carolina State from leaving the ACC. So many breaking news today. It's a little crazy. It's more than a little crazy. Tomorrow, Charlie Baker is going to be meeting with the Power 4 commissioners. So that's just another something we're going to have to watch for tomorrow. Wow. So that's going to be a big meeting tomorrow. No question about it. Woo! Royal pain. The SEC's not taking Clemson. Nobody wants backstabbing North Carolina State in their conference. Holy smokes. Morris Simmons dropping the elbow on the Wolfpack. Stephen McNeely, early peak member. I don't see the Board of Governors preventing North Carolina or North Carolina State leaving the ACC. That would be gross negligence on their part. That's a very good comment. And I think Soap, a great caller at Peek Around the Corner, agrees with you. So, maybe not preventing North Carolina from moving, but North Carolina State's going to have to get something out of it. They're going to have to make sure that North Carolina State's being taken care of in some way, some capacity. Especially, Stephen, go and look at the Board of Governors makeup. There's a lot of Wolfpack in that. There is a ton of Wolfpack, including the chairman of the board. Just get me out of the ACC is so mid. Miss Seminole is in the chat. Florida State, we talked about it. They secured, what they did was secure their internal line of credit. That's what we were told at 10:30 this morning. After Matt Baker's tweets, we were told that basically, essentially, Florida State has secured collateral for whoever they're working with, be it JP Morgan, whoever that is, the equity firm. This is about that equity firm knowing that Florida State can make due on their payments, whatever, when it comes to their, if the equity firm comes in with a big check. This is not about Florida State's auxiliary budgets, auxiliary money coming in and paying for everything. Bam. That's not what this is about. This is Florida State showing whoever they're working with, showing that they've got the right of way, they've got the landing strip, they've got the procedures all worked out to where they can get a line of credit for the athletic department, for athletics, to pay off whatever they need to in the years ahead. No matter how this plays out, no matter if ACC keeps some of the money away from them, penalizes them before they get out, or if they get out but they're not fully invested yet into the SEC, Big Ten, whatever the scenario is, what happened today was Florida State secured their relationship with whoever they're in a relationship with. And whoever that is, JP Morgan, we don't have confirmation. But this is what it was all about today. And that is huge. It doesn't seem like much, but that means that just means that Florida State now has tied up. They're in with somebody. They're in with somebody. Patrick says, I believe eventually SEC and the Big Ten can break away. Interesting. Clemson is Alabama of the ACC. The money is ready. What we don't know what type of money needs to be ready. That's the question. Does Florida State have the $120, $130 million? Sure. But what if the courts don't go their way? What if, for whatever reason, the penalty is going to be set at a very high number? Florida State still wants to get out. And I think when you're doing all this, when you're putting all this work together, when Florida State has gone out and filed a lawsuit, Florida State is ready to pull the trigger in the best case scenario, in the worst case scenario. Because regardless of who you talk to, nobody knows for certain how it's going to go. But Florida State has made it certain that they're out of there. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, and anything in between. That's what this is about. This is about worst case scenario. So when you say you have the money ready, does Florida State really want to have $600 million, $572 million, whatever the damages are, if that is part of it? They don't have, they're not going to want to take all that. They're not going to be able to take all that out. There's no way the university is going to allow that. But they will provide a line of credit to the university to secure this relationship with a JP Morgan or whoever. That's why they're talking to a JP Morgan or somebody like JP Morgan. We're witnessing some major political stuff for the next look in college sports. Yep. We are. Jim will not have a second interview with Atlanta. I just read that. It looks like it's the Charger or Michigan. He's not going to that planned second meeting in Atlanta. Jim Harbaugh is still out there in Los Angeles. He's been out there for a few days. He's still out there. So we'll see what happens there. Okay. The new playoff has not been signed off on yet. That is true. That is true. I'm getting a little nervous about that because the adjustment from 6+6 to 5+7, that hasn't even happened yet. And we were supposed to know about that. Like that a few weeks ago, they said in a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks from now, you're going to get the final verdict. We're going from 6+6 to 5+7. And in doing so, those G5 conferences are going to have to get something in return, which is some sort of playoff access from 2026 and beyond. And it hasn't happened yet. The announcement hasn't happened. So I'm getting nervous. I'm getting nervous for the G5 schools and conferences. Get it done. But maybe Brett Yormark, Sankey, Petitti, Phillips, maybe they've just hit that pause button and said, whoa, hold on. We're not agreeing to anything for 2026 and beyond. Therefore, we're going to have to keep it at 6+6, which hurts the Autonomy 4 conferences for the next 2 years, but gives them the flexibility, the freedom to create what they want to create 2026 and beyond. So I'm officially getting nervous for the G5 schools. I want to see that deal done. go from 6+6 to 5+7. And that's going to tell us that the G5 conferences have some security 2026 and beyond. We're going to shut it down, our live show. We've been almost on for 2 hours. A lot of breaking news today. There could be breaking news tonight. Keep your head on a swivel. Who knows? We may have to come back on tonight. There's so many things going on. So much chatter behind the curtain. Clemson, we've got your eyes on you. North Carolina Board of Governors, you did what we all thought. Florida State Board of Trustees, it might not seem like a big deal what you did today, but it was a big, big deal. So many things going on January 24th. Thank you all for coming here on our lunchtime live show, PATC. I appreciate it. I appreciate the donations, the phone calls, the great comments. And before you leave, make sure you subscribe to our ever-growing channel and smash the like button. Get the notifications on. We could be coming live anytime, within minutes, within hours. Keep your head on a swivel. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.